Welcome again. I'm going to do something very similar to what I did in the maths when I was running through the polynomial nodes and changing up some simple trigonometry functions to make geometries change. This is a model that here's the original, well, not the original, here's just one iteration of it in the middle, and all those other iterations around it are being made by simply playing with the list, with the basic node lists. If that's not making sense, I'll jump on in and I'll try and show you how that's working. So we'll go to shaded, take a look at the models. Actually, I like them better in the other model. But definitely I wouldn't make these geometries. I wouldn't bring them together in Rhino. I can't imagine I'd want to make them. But either way, they came out about making it in Grasshopper. So here are the nodes I'm going to play with right here. And I'm just going to inset my script through those. So I have a script that works well. And I put it in use the same one that I used to make this kind of 2x4 method of dealing with blocks. And you can see that in a past video using a couple of graph mappers to get a list of data. 2 points are made within the system. If I go here, you'll take a look that I have these points and I have these points. I've mirrored them and I brought them together into that two parabolas that are perpendicular to one another. Then I've oriented those points to one another, kind of grafting it in this strange little pattern. And then, since I have 36 geometries, I thought, well, I was just reversing the list. So I get a geometry by just bringing in that geometry right here. I'm keeping track of the list length right here, but if I take a look at the list lengths at 36, I think it's 36, yeah. Now, if I funneled this into here, I would get a totally other geometry that would pop out. So this is the one that was generated right there. Now, if I reverse the list in the script, and I'm not going to get into the whole script because it's pretty basic. It's you'll see it change in a second. There it goes, changes iterations. I basically brought that in, those points. I've mapped onto it these squares, and then I've also put in an extra bonus pipe up here, which is not really that necessary. I could turn the preview off. But basically, that pipe is aligned. So I have this geometry and this geometry that come together. But what I'm doing to manipulate is really key. I just go down the list of nodes, and I play with it. So the first one was reverse list to change it. The next one is I brought it in, and I thought, well, I'll bring in the list after putting through a shift list, which then will allow me at the count of all those 36 items to change this geometry just by changing the shift list. So if you apply this to a geometry or pattern, something you want to make, you get this subtle, beautiful change and control. And once again, I was doing this with maths and polynomials. I was simply going into here, into the math tool, going down into the trig and changing up what I was inputting here. I was going into polynomials and moving out from 1 over x to natural logarithm. You could still have this apply. Now, other people think, well, I'll bring in a graph mapper, I'll just push around my form by that, and that will change it. I think you use these nodes at face value of what they actually are, small programs for changing what you're doing. And here's a partition list that if I bring that one in, and I was having fun with the dispatch, that if I brought that in directly into that geometry, and then I was playing with what I was taking out as a called pattern, or even add that to the list up here, you end up adding geometries to what you're doing, which is just pretty amazing to think about it. I mean, I wouldn't be making these geometries. They all speak kind of the same. They might be the head or finish of something, and each one of those kind of has reference to one another. And I think this is for modification, not having to reusing your scripts, but not having to redo ones. I think it's just the way I come to understand this and think about it. It makes sense to me. So I thought that might be helpful to go in and realize, hey, I can just change up these patterns with simple scripts that I've learned how to do. I can have an infinite array of patterns if I actually want to get in here and play with that. Fun to do and fun to throw it into different colored renders. But that's it. The scripts will be online, but I leave it up to you to go in and find out, okay, well, what happens when I take that list data of really, if you look at what you're making, a list can take anything. But this one happens to be taking points. You can see from the data, if I bring out a panel tool, I don't really want to bring this one out, but you can see that it's coming out as a series of points. Well, all I'm doing is playing with the order and manipulating that, and that's changing up what I'm doing. Pretty nice. You can do it to lines, you can do it to geometry, you can do it to numbers, you can do it to attributes, to points. I mean, if that's not making a lot of sense, get in here and play with it. What would I do with an insert items? I could insert other indices that are list items for index items that I can pull out what was in them. Really get into the programming side of what's happening here, and you've managed to do things. I'm playing with list items, so I just want to choose a few, or if I want a selection from a graph mapper, or if I want to dispatch or call out a pattern to feed into that, the chunks, what are the sizes of the chunks? So I can break this into different units, and I can manipulate that afterwards. The sort list is very important to learn along with the list items. It's not a members list. It's an interesting tool when you start thinking about this one paired with that one. But I've got other scripts that I've put out to do that. We're at the 5-minute mark. I leave you with the script. Play with it. Find some sublists. Play with the domains, and make your geometries. This is basically based on center box and a pipe. I haven't even made it a variable pipe. So very simple. But once again, would you ever have gone into Rhino and thought of making these and rendering them and making those forms? You might accidentally get lost in CAD programs and not understand why the program's doing what you're having it do. But this way you break it down and you physically see it. This is obviously it's not a dozen nodes, it's like 3 dozen nodes, but you break it into sections and you figure out what you're doing. Lots of other things to be intrigued and find out what they're capable of doing. Thanks again for watching.